begin the construction process for the pavilion, columns need to be fabricated on the ground from lengths of red gum logs. Each footing will need logs to be cut to unique lengths so that the top brackets are all at the same height once the columns have been attached to the footings. After stripping the bark from the red gum log, slots need to be cut at either end to fix the top brackets at one end and the steel plates which are cast into the footings at the other. The slots should be aligned at each end of the column, except in the case of the single column footing, where one slot will need to be cut at a 45-degree angle from the other. To help align the slots, a string line can be used to establish a centre line along the log and account for any bends. Once the position of the slot is established, a chainsaw can be used to cut up through the centres and create a slot wide enough to comfortably accommodate the steel components. Once slots have been cut at either end of the log, holes will need to be drilled through the timber to accommodate the lengths of threaded bolt which would be used to fit the timber to the steel. Once again, using a string line to establish a centre line along the logs, a custom jig can be clamped and levelled on the log to act as a guide for the drill. By using the jig, the holes can be drilled both straight down through the log and in alignment with the pre-existing holes drilled in the steel plates cast into the footings and on the top connections. To securely clamp the jig to the log, small pieces of steel can be used as a level surface across the top of the jig itself and placed through the slots in the timber. During the process of clamping the jig to the log, adjustments can be made to create the correct alignment with the holes at the opposite end of the log and to keep the jig level against the curved surface. Using an auger bit, holes can now be drilled all the way through the log to fit the length of 25mm threaded bolt. Once holes have been drilled for running the bolt, the surface of the log can be prepared for fitting washers. Using a washer as a guide, a level square should be chiselled around the holes to provide a flat surface for the washers to sit against. It's worth intermittently checking the level of the chiselled surface by placing a washer down on the surface and testing for movement. When the surface is level, the washer will remain comfortably in place without any capacity for rocking against the log. Now that the log has been prepared, the top connecting bracket can be fitted to one end of the column. The steel component should easily fit into the chainsawed slot, and once in place, a length of threaded bolt can be fitted through the pre-drilled holes in the timber and the aligning holes in the steel plate. Fit a washer and nut to either end of the bolt and tighten the bolts as much as possible. At this point, the bolts can also be cut to length and cleaned up with an angle grinder. Once the bolts are in place and are adequately tightened, metal strapping can be fitted around the log for added security. Using thin sheet metal cut to an appropriate width, the strapping can be fitted by pinning one end to the log and working around from this point, hammering in clout nails. The strapping can be pulled tight as the log is worked around to ensure that it's kept in tension and there are no sections that are loose or will buckle outwards from the log. Once you've worked around to the original pinning nail, 2 nails can be fitted at the end of the strap and any sharp corners rounded off for safety. The column is now complete and ready to be attached to the concrete footings.